That's an ace right there.
An ace, huh?
That's an ace is what he is.
Well, he's certainly pitching like one.
Mm-hmm.
He leads the National League in ERA. He's fourth in baseball this season in ERA. And if you go back to last year's All-Star game, he's got the best ERA in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
It's 12 consecutive starts with 2 earned runs or less. That's unbelievable, man.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, that's a really cool stat. Thanks for sharing that with me.
yeah,
Damn right.
you're welcome. But I gotta say, is he the most underrated player in baseball? Is it enough of a body of work where we can say he should be getting more national attention? We should see him on Intentional Talk. We should see him be the guy that's, get the dugout interview.
A few more starts. I think
few more.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what the number is, but when the Cubs do the national TV game and someone's mic'd up or someone does the dugout interview, Hap seems to be the first guy that they go to. Player rep, veteran, all-star last year. I mean, this guy could. Obviously, it's incredibly early, but when you factor in the second half of last year, it feels a little bit more valid for the conversation.
Yep.
Feels like he could start an all-star game.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's certainly on the table.
I'm just saying where the numbers are going back a dozen plus starts.
Yeah, since last June, there's only a couple of pitchers with a better ERA than him who've started as much as he has. One of them is Verlander, who's still hurt.
Right, he's not pitching this year, right?
Another is Julio Urias. Another is Shohei Ohtani. This is where he is going back to just before the All-Star break last year. And if you listen to hitters, listen to the coaches, listen to Yan Gomes, everything is way filthier than it should be in terms of, the radar gun. Like the fastball is super unique. And so that's why he can just throw that fastball half the time or less. And then the slider is insane.
Yeah.
It's the most unhittable pitch in baseball right there. They had it last night. Spencer Strider's slider and the Ohtani slider, right? It's those 3 pitches in all of baseball. It's absolutely nuts. And I talked to him on Sunday, Danny. He's on Hit and Run. He has the ability to manipulate the slider so much. He can change the shape of it, change the speed of it. So when you say 2 pitches, but like, he's only got 2 pitches, he throws like 2 or 3 different varieties on the slider
of the
alone.
Same pitch.
Exactly.
Right.
And the fastball has 2 varieties.
Right.
Sometimes it cuts, sometimes it rides. So he's confusing people with really difficult to hit stuff.
Well, because so before the year, the thing that I was asking was, where are the high ceiling guys? Where are the guys on the team that can be all-star starters, that can be MVP candidates, that you know what I mean, that could command 9-figure contracts? Like those types of talents, you generally speaking need to have a bunch of them in order to win a World Series. You might not all be paying all of them on 9-figure contracts, but like the guys that eventually you are going to. I remember talking to Theo about it. He's like, we were looking at our board and we were like, to win a World Series, you got to have, 8 to 10 great players. And we felt like at the start of it, we had like 2 who had that potential. Mm-hmm. How are we going to get from A to B? And that was the task, right? That was the 2012, 13, 14, 15. That was like the goal. At the start of this year, how many guys would you have said could be great on the Cubs? I think it was a pretty small number. But at some point, Justin Steele has to enter that conversation if he hasn't ended it already. Entered it already.
I think it's true. He's 5th in all of baseball in terms of giving up hard contact. He just doesn't do it. And number 1 in all of baseball is tonight's pitcher, Drew Smyly, which is a crazy, crazy thing. But this whole rotation is overachieving. And for Steele itself, that is a guy who if they have a homegrown ace, I mean, that changes a lot of things. If you've got a homegrown top of the rotation pitcher who's getting paid very little, and maybe you'll extend him at some point, but boy, that helps the math on going out and getting more pitching quite a bit.
Yeah, it does, and it gives you confidence in everything that they're saying and showing in pitching development, right? it shows like, oh, Keegan Thompson and Adbert Alzolay and on and Drew Smiley and all of these guys. It's like, oh, they can maximize the arms that they have here. No matter what the talent is, no matter what the stuff is, no matter what the role is, if there is a belief that whatever your best is, your best 10 percentile, your best 20 percentile, the Cubs are going to be the organization that gets you there. That helps with everything.
Yeah, there's maybe 8 or 10 organizations that have a reputation for getting absolutely the most out of whatever pitcher they have.
Cleveland, Tampa.
The Astros and Tampa and the Dodgers, especially in the bullpen, will figure out, all right, what do you do best? Okay, let's do that all the time. And let's just make you as good as we can. Tampa does it better probably than anybody. Houston does it really, really well with a lot of different people. The Cubs are starting to have that reputation, especially in that bullpen. I mean, Wisniewski gets here because they created something from nothing with Scott Efros and then traded him away to get Wisniewski. And we'll see what happens with Wisniewski. But
a lot of hype, a lot of talent, hasn't harnessed it yet. This year has been disappointing so far. It's early.
But you mentioned Thompson and Alzolay. I mean, what they're throwing and the way they're throwing it is a very specific decision and creation. Smiley tonight, nobody throws a curveball more than Drew Smiley. Like I heard Tommy Ottavy this morning saying last time out, Smiley threw 11 curveballs in a row at one point.
Right.
Another time he threw 10 in a row. He's just willing and able to throw. And they helped him with that. Like, hey, by the way, your curveball's great. Just throw that a lot. That kind of thing. That's pitching development and utilization at the big league level.
So, I mean, what do you think this really is? Because ace is a scouting term. Right, some teams have 2 aces, right? When Scherzer and Verlander are on the same team, they have 2 aces. Some teams have 0 aces. What do you think this actually is? Is he actually an ace? Is this guy going to be a top 20 starting pitcher in baseball for like a prolonged, real period of time?
Well, that's on the table. That's certainly on the table, assuming health.
Those guys get $200 million contracts.
Yeah, eventually.
Eventually. And obviously that's not, I understand, he's, 27? Almost 28 years old?
I need him to be, his goal is 34 starts and 180 innings. That was his goal at the beginning of the year. In fact, before that, in spring training, as he ramped up, because last year he was like, am I a starter? Am I a reliever? Whatever. This offseason, he knew he was a starter, and he slowly ramped up in spring training to hit opening day running, and he wants to have 34 starts and 180 innings. So I need him to go deeper than just 5, like he did last night against a real good team. But that was a tough 5 to get through, but I'm sure he'd say he knows he needs to go deeper. He's gone 6 in every other game. An ace.
5 1/3, right? So he's got
5 1/3.
Yeah, he's got an out, at least 1 out of the 6th inning.
Great.
Every start this year. 6-6, 7-6, 5 1/3.
Am I old-fashioned to say I need my ace to go 7 every once in a while? I want an ace to go 7 or maybe even 8 every once in a while.
No, I mean, it's obviously getting rarer and rarer. I think it's something to aspire to. It just is like, so he's not a free agent until 2028. Like, this is a 5th round pick who's 25 years old. Wow. Like to even be entertaining the conversation, it seems ridiculous to me, honestly. It feels crazy premature, but you have to factor in the second half of last year for him when he's put, because a texter said, how is this comparing to what Jake Arrieta did in 2015?
Oh, God. Well, Arrieta,
we're a ways away from that. He did it all in one season, and he did it in huge games.
Well, yeah. Well, Arrieta's run through from early 2015 through early 2016, like that full. I have the numbers somewhere.
Well, it was that, everyone counted to Bob
Gibson.
But,
right.
But it got a bunch of hype because it happened at once, right? That's why the Cy Young conversation was what it was. That's why he got the start in the playoff game. Like, you know what I mean? It was undeniable for a huge body of work. This body of work is not huge, but it's also not small. Like, you know what I mean? It's just happened to be split across 2 seasons, and the majority of last season, frankly, the majority of baseball people were not paying attention to the Cubs. They were so far out of it and so bad, and the games weren't high leverage. There wasn't a lot of attention put towards any individual success or accolades that they had, even though they had a very strong, like we've talked about, 40-31 to finish the season. Like,
yeah.
So I'm watching. I'm impressed. I'm certainly recalibrating, but it feels a little absurd to be like, yeah, this guy can be a top 20 pitcher of baseball for a long time, because if he can, you don't even have to worry about the contract. He's going to be here for 4 more seasons.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly don't have to worry about giving him that extension until you get closer. Remember what they did with Arrieta? They let him go all the way to the end of his cheapness and then let him sign for big money somewhere else. But we're a ways away from that. Steele doesn't have any leverage for several more years on that part of it. The 35-start span for Arrieta from June 21st, 2015 to June 22nd, 2016, over 35 starts, Danny. He had a 1.22 ERA and a 0.807 whip, 254 strikeouts, 62 walks in 243 innings. He allowed 2 or fewer runs in 31 of those 35 starts. I mean, that is one of the all-time full season stretches in the history of the modern game. Outrageous.
Completely outrageous. I'm not saying that he's that, obviously. A texter just asked it. It's way too premature. The games are not big enough. All of it. But I don't know, man. Ace? They're talking about him being an ace on the broadcast. They're putting his graphic next to the name Justin Verlander. You know, like 2 earned runs or less in 12 straight starts. We have to at least have a thought on the possibility of what that could be.